Eisenhower was a hero of the Second World War. He was born in Denison, Texas on October 14, 1890, and went to school in Abilene, Kansas. Shortly after graduation from high school, he entered West Point Military Academy. He graduated from West Point in 1915. He met Mamie Geneva Dowd when he was serving at Fort Sam Houston near San Antonio, Texas. They were married a short time later. In 1918, Eisenhower became commander of a tank training center near Gettysburg, and he served as executive officer of Camp Gillard in the Panama Canal Zone from 1922 to 1924. He attended the Command and General Staff School in Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, mastering a course that was most difficult. In 1926, he graduated at the head of his class of 275 men. He was appointed aide to General Douglas MacArthur and went with MacArthur to the Philippines in 1935. He learned to fly from a military academy that he organized. He was the first U.S. president to hold a pilot's license. Ike became a full colonel by March of 1941. He was Chief of Staff of the Third Army and was promoted to Brigadier General and was appointed to the War Plans Division in December. Eisenhower helped to develop World War II master strategy for Pacific defense and for the Allied invasion of Europe. He became Commanding General of American Forces in Europe and Commander of the North African Invasion and Supreme Commander of the Allied invasion of Normandy. He served briefly as President of Columbia University in 1948, and it was here that he wrote the best-selling book, Crusade in Europe. He was appointed Supreme Commander of NATO in 1950, and the Democrats and Republicans were both asking him to run for president. He refused them both, but finally he resigned from the Army in 1952, and he tried for the Republican nomination. He won on the first ballot at the Chicago Convention. He won the presidency by a landslide, defeating Adlai Stevenson. Eisenhower was a religious man and started his inaugural address with a prayer. After his election, he flew to the Korean battlefront to see the war firsthand. He tried to end the war and finally succeeded in 1953. Secretary of State John Foster Dulles in 1954, along with Eisenhower, formed the Southeast Asia Treaty Organization to fight communism. He proposed that the U.S. and Russia enter into an open skies agreement to inspect each other's military installations from the air, but Russia rejected the idea. Even though he had a heart attack in 1955 and an abdominal operation in 1956, Eisenhower ran for re-election in 1956. "We like Ike" was the campaign slogan, and he beat Stevenson with a greater landslide than the first time. His second term had more problems than his first term. He sent troops to force integration of schools in Little Rock, Arkansas. Russia beat out the Americans when
Dwight David Eisenhower became president.
They launched their first Sputnik in 1957, but finally America's Explorer 1 satellite was launched in January of 1958. He broke off relations with Cuba when Fidel Castro seized American property on the island. After his presidency, Eisenhower retired to his farm in Gettysburg. He died of heart failure on March 28, 1969.
I, Dwight D. Eisenhower, do solemnly swear.
In the first televised inauguration, he was the great hero of World War II, and his popularity carried him to the White House. The Eisenhower years were a time of tranquility, of prosperity.
He gave stability to this country. This country had the stablest prices, consumer prices, in the 8 years of his administration. Stabler than in any other administration in this century.
It was the 50s. The automobile was king, and Americans were heading for the suburbs.
No one is more aware than I that it is the young who fight the war. We promise peace in our time. It must be peace in their time, too, and in their children's time.
He called for a halt to the arms race.
In a nuclear war, there can be no victors, only losers.
While simultaneously undertaking a massive buildup of nuclear missiles. Peace through strength, he believed. Ike increased covert operations throughout the world. The Eisenhower Doctrine asserted America's right to use force to defend any country threatened by international communism, despite appeals and protests. They were convicted of giving atomic secrets to the Soviets. And the Soviets' successful launch of an orbiting satellite called Sputnik fueled American anxieties. The 50s brought new music, funny fads, good times, and America had a highly popular father figure as president. Everybody liked Ike.
He was marvelous. He filled the room when he walked in. And I think that had something to do with the fact that when he was president, we still had black and white television. And when you saw him in person with those ruddy cheeks, it was almost as if he had turned into Technicolor off the screen. I don't think anybody can, again, have that feeling in the presence of a famous man that one could have in the days of black and white television.